Ladies and mental gen, today is March 14th, 2013, and this is the KNKL show, day 83, episode 83, I mean. I am your host, Keenan Lafferty, and today we are going to be doing a lovely tutorial on horizons and how they affect your pieces, horizon lines, and you. That is what the title of today is going to be. And we are going to be moving into that right after we take a stroll down a couple lovely lanes here, people. Thank you once again to everyone who has been participating, submitting their awesome artwork to the KNKL Facebook page. Always makes me oh so happy to see you guys improving and taking the lessons that I teach you in the tutorials and putting them into your own works of art, especially this Dairy Queen thing. Love that. Alright guys, moving on. For those of you who don't know, we are having our very own art contest for Emma, the online comic Little Girl versus The Walking Dead. And I want you guys to show me what the characters do in their off time, right? Because we got summer break coming up. Let's show what these characters do in their off time, like taking a stroll through the park, as you can see on the actual art contest page here. Maybe playing some video games, making waffles. Who cares? Go ahead and show me that and you can get some cool prizes. Alright, moving on to the Twitter. For those of you not following me on Twitter, please follow me because I will not spam you when I'm doing crazy things like feeding cheese to my dog and making him run outside even though he's old and scraggly. But I will update you when new things are going onto YouTube and you can be the first to know. Alright people, with all that out of the way, oh wait, one more thing. I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has been watching the show. Everybody who reads the comic and just participates in the show really means a lot. And I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to this month's donators. If you'd like to get your name on this list, simply click the link down below in the comments section. You can have your name featured throughout the month! Alright, moving on. Let's see if I did that in like record time. Because I don't want to inconvenience you guys with too many things at the beginning. But, or maybe I do, actually, yeah. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like 45 minutes of talking about stuff and then 15 minutes of art tutorial. How about that? Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about horizon lines and really, really cool ways that you can use them to your advantage. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about today is if you're laying out a picture such as this, you know, you usually have to start with something like a horizon line. How about that? Alright, but where do you go from there? Oftentimes you want to create such illusions as depth, right? So you have, say, a handsome man standing here, right? And this is going to be a very, very handsome stick man. We're going to give him a manly square head structure, and we'll give him some lovely looking legs there. Okay. So that looks pretty dang good. I like that. Okay, so here we have our stick man. Actually, I'm going to make his legs a little bit longer, so he's a little bit more realistically proportioned. Okay, so now what you want to do is, or a common question that you might be asking yourself at this point is, well, I want to have a lot of people in this picture, but I want to have them look like they're going in perspective, right? So how do you lay out the perspective properly? Let's say, oh, okay, well, this guy's going to be like further back, so he's going to be like this here, right? And this guy's going to be standing back like this. Same guy, but on a different perspective, right? Further back. And this is probably what you'll start doing. You'll probably start doing things like this. And I want to be the first to tell you that this is wrong! Absolutely wrong. You don't want to do this. And you want to know why? It's because your perspective and horizon line is not lining up. So what we're going to do, it sounds like a freaking war zone outside. You hear the helicopter like flying by? Like these people on their motorcycles and stuff. It's like a freaking war zone out here. We live right next to like a nice busy street outside and everything. Things are different here in Utah. Things are much different. But I like it. I must keep the window open because it is so hot in here, and with the freaking light like shining on my face too, also makes things a little bit warmer. Alright, so anyway, enough complaining. Let's move on to the proper way to set up your guys going into the background. Okay, so check this out. A cool little trick that I was taught by Alvin Lee when I was taking his comic book perspective class was that whenever you draw a character going back in the distance, wherever the horizon line crosses, across, like say for this instance, it's going right across his lower abdomen, right? Right across his lower stomach. Basically, all the characters that you draw that are on the same plane, basically if you were to draw a line back in perspective, all of the characters' waists are going to also land on the horizon line. How about that? Isn't that cool? So now you can draw stuff up like this, and then you have something like that. This looks like the LucasArts robot thing, or whatever, the LucasArts logo. This show was brought to you by LucasArts, even though they're dead and buried. Alright. So also going back again, check it out. Lower abdomen, same thing. See that? So now you are working with proper perspective, okay? So now we're going to do another quick, whoa, that's totally off. Another quick exercise here, okay? We're going to move the horizon line up a little bit more, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Same thing. And this works really well whenever the horizon line is just intersecting with a part of your character, right? It really helps you to like measure things. I found that's the most important thing. So let's put the horizon line a little bit higher on this one. And let's say we have our character's head here, and he's standing in this area. Maybe he's like walking or something, right? So he's walking along like that. That is a terrible walk drawing there. Let me fix that. There we go. That's a little bit more animated. Love it. And he's got some nice sagging low pants. I like it. He's a gangster. He's a gangster. Alright, so we have our character walking along, right? Now, because the horizon line is coming in contact with his neck area, right? Any character that we draw back like this, any character that we draw doing that same thing, the horizon line is going to intersect with their neck. Okay? Isn't that cool? And then another awesome thing that you can do to kind of like make sure that your proportions are working right, because you could do this guy, you could draw his neck intersecting there, and then you could like draw this giant body, and it'll be off obviously, right? Because we want him to be in perspective. So a good way to measure it is figure out where you want your guy to be standing in the distance, right? If you want him to be standing here, right, then simply draw a line back like that from this guy's foot all the way back, right? And then that is where this guy's foot is going to be, right? And then because he's walking, we're going to have to kind of change that up a little bit. And then just make sure that by your proportions, you'll know, okay, so I have from here to here to draw his body, and then his neck is going to be there, and his head is going to be right above that. So that's how you come up with those types of things. Okay? I hate drawing people walking. I think drawing people walking is like one of the hardest things to do. I absolutely hate it. That's why I like dread drawing the like the establishment shots where it's like all these people just doing all these different gestures, you know, because I had like a bad habit of just drawing people in like these stiff gestures, and there's a lot of movement, a lot of character that can be captured even just like a small stick figure guy walking, right? So I always take that as a challenge, and it's very fun, very, very, very fun. It's also very challenging as well, as I said. Alright, so check that out. See how I did that? I drew his legs out, but then, you know, we have all this room to draw on his thing, and then his neck is up here. So that's wrong. Okay? So the way you do this properly is we have from here to here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this. We have from here to here to draw this guy's body. So let's go ahead and draw that again. And then his head is going to be like that. And that's how you can properly make sure that your guys are going back in perspective and they're all the same height. Because if you don't do this, then, you know, like if you do this thing, like, oh, okay, I'm going to have this guy back here. And yeah, it's in perspective, but his head is way up here, right? This guy is actually going to be giant. Like if we drew up here, this guy would actually be gigantic. He would actually be like that tall. Like his head would be up here if he was standing next to this guy. He would be like that. Isn't that interesting? And also, that comes to my next point that I want to talk about. Let's go ahead and get rid of this guy really quick. So another cool thing that you can use this for is for, say, building placements, right? say you want to draw this guy coming out of a building, right? Or say this guy's walking in the foreground, but you want to draw a realistic sized looking building in the background. Well, basically all you have to do is just figure out where you want the building to be placed, and then you'll say, okay, well, at this point right here, at this point, this is where this man's neck would be if he was standing right next to it. So now we can scale things, right? Now we can say, okay, well, the building is probably going to be about 12 feet high. So it's probably going to be 2 of these guys, twice the height of this man. And you can draw this little thing. Let's make it like a little house or something. Make it a little housey house. Lovely. I'm drawing things in quickly. Let's draw a little porch on there. A little cellar there. And see, this is how you can make things, because I always struggled with this. I was like, how big do I know, or how big am I supposed to draw this house? Like, how do I know how big I'm supposed to draw this house, is what I'm trying to say, right? I just kind of like wing it, right? But now that I know this trick, it's basically, okay, wherever I'm going to place this, depending on the grid, that is how high the house should be. You know what I mean? Because I know that this is how high the guy's neck would be, and his head would be about there, so the house is going to be therefore twice as big. Okay? That is basically the way that, I hope that makes sense to you. Basically anything, when you do it this way, all the time, you use the horizon line as your measurement tool. And it's really, really awesome to do it that way. Let's go back to this guy. Let's draw kind of another thing. Let's draw like a giant next to him. So let's say we want this giant to be twice the height of him. Well, we know that the waistline of this guy is going to be right about there. Okay? Or we know it's going to be exactly there because it's lining up with the horizon. So if this guy, if there was a giant standing next to this guy, in fact, we could do this. Let's draw a giant standing next to him. And let's say that the horizon line comes to his knees, right? And then this giant guy is like way up here. He's big old lumberjack. Big old lumberjack dude, and his arms are coming down like this, right? And his head is way up here, okay? We don't need to worry about all of that because all we need to know is that the horizon line hits his knees, okay? So now let's go ahead and draw that giant in perspective. Same thing we're going to do right here. The horizon line is going to collide with his knees, and then just by using proportion, now we can construct the rest of his body, right? Because we go another measurement up from how long it is from the foot to the knee will make his leg, right? And then about 2 legs up will make the rest of his body. Alright? And then you can start to see the giant man. But what's interesting is if you made this guy back in perspective and you made him look like that, that guy would be a giant. So I think that's interesting. I really think that's interesting because this is the way I used to draw. I used to just kind of like guess it. I used to just kind of guess at what, you know, how the size of this guy, what he should be. And I'm freaking stumbling all over the place trying to talk about this because it's actually kind of a hard. I'm trying to put it plainly. With what I'm trying to achieve here. So yeah, it always works. And basically the way that this can work to your favor is basically you take the foot and you draw from the foot a line to anywhere on the horizon line, and then you can just continue to construct guys from that angle, right? You can draw a line back like this, right? No matter where you start to draw the foot of this man, it is always going to hit his waist on the horizon line. Always will hit his waist on the horizon line. So you get stuff like this, you know, these guys that were here, you're having this go on, you know, and you can start to see, you could even do that, you know, you can draw from the top of the head down, and you'll basically see, you know, the dimensions of what the guy is going to be. And that really, really helps me out a lot when I'm drawing like all of these establishing shots with all these bikers and, you know, motorcycles and buildings and stuff. It's like, how the heck do I make this look believable? How do I make that building look like a guy could actually enter it and it doesn't look too small, you know? Or just kind of like cheating the perspective, cheating the proportions, cheating the perspective. Because it just looks off. It's weird. And you don't have to be an artist to notice it. Anybody who just looks at the picture can be like, oh, there's some reason I don't like this. Some reason I don't like the setup of this picture. Some reason I don't like it. And that's why, because they're trained to see this. They're trained to know that if you go back that far and there was a man standing here, that he should only be about half as high as, you know, maybe like the porch, you know, or the roof, rather. So, yeah, this is a very, very interesting tutorial on perspective and horizon lines. I understand that, but I really want to drive the point home, and I want you guys to start using this in your drawings, because when I learned this, it literally just blew my mind wide open, and I was like, whoa, that's so awesome, just using the horizon line as a measurement tool and saying, okay, from this point to this point is that long, and then anything that I want to make, I just measure it from this. It's like from the foot to his waist is this long, so you know the giant needs to be this long, right, or this tall, or the building needs to be this tall, or I need to make sure that the door is this high for him to walk into it, right, and then that will go back in perspective as well, you know. So it's just like laying stuff out like that. Or it can be a telephone pole, you know, going back like this. And I'm sure that these things are all things that you've seen in, you know, your little art class, you know, with the telephone poles like vanishing into the distance. But I always wanted to know like how that was happening, or why that was happening, or how to make it look even more believable, and just kind of simplify it. And I think that's probably the simplest way I've ever been able to come across it, is that just basically wherever the man is standing, the horizon line, it will always intersect the same body part, or basically the same height of any object that it passes through. Any object, okay? Throwing that out there. Alrighty, people. Let's see. What do I want to do for the rest of this? I'm actually going to open it up to questions right now. Please ask any questions in the chat to your right of anything you would like me to illustrate or drive a little bit more forward for you, because I know that today is a little bit more of a complicated tutorial. And I hope that I am helping as opposed to confusing you. But please, let me know anything you would like me to answer. And until that happens, I'm going to draw another horizon line thing. And you guys can just watch how I work here. That was not supposed to happen. Alright. So let's go ahead and do kind of that neck thing again. Let's do it at the guy's neck. I'll show you kind of how I set up a scene in general. Like, let's have a guy right here, kind of chilling, folding his arms. And this is how I set up scenes. This is really how I set up scenes. I'm not worrying about anatomy. I'm not worrying about really any of that stuff, any details. All I'm really focusing on is the posture, how this person is standing, what this tiny little shape is telling us about the attitude of this character. And you'd be surprised, there's a lot of attitude that can be conveyed in just a simple little stance or like a little stick figure. So I really pay attention to those types of things. And so we see the horizon line is going right through his abdomen, right? So let's say we have a motorcycle. Let's say we have a motorcycle. Oh, this is where it comes in really handy. Okay, so let's say if you're standing next to a motorcycle, the handlebars are actually going to come right up to probably your mid-chest, right? So what's really cool is if we wanted to draw a motorcycle in perspective, basically all we'd have to do is just make sure that wherever we placed it, the handlebars are coming right up to that horizon line, right? Let's go ahead and draw on a nice little motorcycle here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we know that this is in proper perspective because the handlebars are going right up to his chest. And then by that same principle, we can draw this back. Let's say we want to draw this motorbike going back in space. And no matter where we place this, like say this is, like all you got to do is draw a line over and be like, okay, that motorbike is now going to be right next to him, right? And the handlebars are still going to land right on that horizon line. And we're going to get something like that, right? And then mid-ground, same thing. We're going to draw that up. Handlebars hit right on that horizon line. Isn't that clever? This is clever stuff. I love it. I love it. This blows my mind. Blows my mind. And that's always very, very helpful. So there's no more winging it. You know what I mean? There's no more winging of, okay, well, what size is this bike supposed to be? How big is it? You don't have to cheat it or try to figure it out. How big is it supposed to be? How big do I make it when it's back here and all that stuff? And even like a tiny little motorcycle back here, it's still going to land on the horizon line. Okay, so same principle. Okay, now let's draw a building right next to this guy. Okay, so horizon line is at his waist. Let's go right up about here. This is about how tall I'd like a doorway to be. So let's go ahead and draw that over to this point here. And then you can draw basically from the horizon line, and you can connect it right up to that. And then be like, okay, well, if there was a doorway here, like a garage, it would have to be that high, right? And then the building would have to be that big. See, like that kind of stuff. And I really like doing that. I really, really, really enjoy doing that. Makes things so much easier. So much easier. And let's draw a same building. And then what's interesting actually is that you can take that same building and then you can measure it from that. You can be like, okay, well, it's about halfway through the garage door opening, right? If this was like a garage door. So you can be like, okay, I'm going to draw the same building back here, except it's at a different angle, right? And I know that it's going to be at half of the garage door opening. So there you go. I hope that makes sense. Here, I'll do it again over here. Say we're drawing the building way back here. We're making it so the horizon line passes right through halfway of that little garage door open thingy. So it's all relative. That's all it is. It's all relative based upon this horizon line. And that is basically how I begin to set up scenes. That's how I start to throw in vehicles, bikes, other characters, and make sure that it all looks right. It's all proportioned properly, and there's no like Mickey Mousing of the proportions, trying to like fake it or any of that stuff. And I'm not always drawing out, like I hope you guys understand, I'm not always drawing out these little horizon lines. Or I'm not always drawing out the vanishing points, but sometimes I'll make like little measurements, and sometimes I just kind of see it in my head, and I'll just do it. But this is a great exercise to get started with. And I hope that you guys will enjoy that. Alright, so I'm going to check over here with the questions, see how we're doing over here. Part-time Ninja is asking about covering 2-point perspective. I actually could talk a little bit about that, because basically, 2-point perspective is actually very, very simple. As we hear, motorcycles outside. Love it! Ever since I started doing this comic, I swear, there's just like more motorbikes in my life. It's like I hear them, I see them on the road, hear them outside my window, and I really would like one for myself. That'd make me very happy. Alright, so we're going to talk about 2-point perspective now. Hey, I'm going to do my best. Okay, so what's really cool is say you're drawing a box, right? And this is something that's very, very interesting. Okay, so again, I'm going to try to simplify this as much as I can. So check it out. We know that a box is composed of 4 right angles, right? Interesting. So if you're going to be drawing any sort of box in perspective, in a 2-point perspective, you need to make sure that whatever vanishing points you pick, your angle must be greater than a right angle. Must be greater than a right angle, right? And the reason why this is because as you take an angle, as you take a right angle and you were to lay it down, right? Like take this right angle If we were to draw a right angle on a piece of paper, like this, and this is the paper, if we were to lay that paper down in perspective, that right angle is going to open up. It is going to appear in our eyes as an obtuse. It is going to get greater and greater and greater as it approaches the flat line, right? Like if you were to really, really like push this perspective, that angle would be almost like at 180 degrees. Isn't that interesting? I should illustrate that a little bit better. So you got the paper going way back in perspective. And that same drawing right there will appear almost as a 180 degree angle to the naked eye. Does that make sense? Even though it's all, like, the angle never changes on the paper, obviously. It's not a magic angle. It's just that as it gets closer to your eye line, it will automatically become more obtuse. So that's very interesting. And basically, that's the way it works here, right? Basically, as you get closer to the horizon line, that's what's happening. That same right angle is getting larger and larger and larger if you're looking at what's happening here, right? This measure is wider than this measure. Same thing, because you're coming from these 2 points, that measure of this angle is going to be larger than the one prior to it. But regardless, I think the biggest thing to understand is when you're setting up those first two vanishing points, try to make sure that they're larger than a right angle, larger than 90 degrees. Because if you don't, say you're drawing something that's kind of like a boxy shape, and of course you can be drawing like all kinds of different shapes, right? But usually I like to set up my perspective in terms of thinking inside the box, right? Like if you're drawing a person, you want to think about them existing in like a cube or like a rectangle thing, right? And if you put the vanishing points too close together, what's going to happen is you're going to get this, right? See, this is less than. This is less than a right angle, slightly less than a right angle. And then you're going to try to like lay in a cube, and it's going to look kind of weird, right? Like that's obviously not a box, you know, and you can't draw a character inside of that. So instead, what I urge you to do is make sure you set your vanishing points wide enough that you at least have a greater than a right angle. An angle that is greater than 90 degrees. Which is like that. Now you're good to go. Now you can draw boxes to your heart's content. See that? That clearly looks like a box. And see, these lines are going towards that as well. These lines are heading right back towards your horizon line. And now you can construct, now you can begin to construct the person within. Okay? And there's all kinds of like crazy stuff that just like happens with vanishing points and all these kinds of things that I still have barely begun to scratch the surface of. And yeah, but this is the basic thing that I would like you guys to focus on is when you're placing your first vanishing points, just make sure greater than 90 degrees, and then you can go ahead and begin constructing. Let's go ahead and construct a guy inside of this, yeah? So you construct a man. Construct your sexy man. Let's give him like some actual proper proportions here. It's gonna be a little cartoony, but yeah, let's see what we can do. Okay, so we have our manly man, right? Let's give him some big shoulders. Yeah, cool. And then we know, going back, look at where that horizon line hits, again, on the abdomen. So if we go back and draw that same guy, right? Say he's standing here. His abdomen is also going to hit right there. You guys get that? You guys getting that? And then you can also take the tip of his head and draw that right back and be like, okay, that's where his head goes. So that really, really helps you to start laying out your scenes and drawing things in perspective and with like a 2-point thing. And again, I'm not the best at this, so I hope that you guys are getting this so far. And yeah, this has actually been a very, very tough tutorial to give. And it's actually very challenging, but I like a good challenge. And I hope it's helping you guys out. Alright, people, so we're going to go ahead and end today after a quick second round of questions. I'm going to have a couple more questions come in, and then we're going to end episode 83 of the KNKL show. And then I'm going to go get a nice drink of ice cold water. Oh, Turtle with Guns is asking about shadows and how they change as they go further back. Yeah, let's experiment with that. I'm actually curious about that because I don't know. I usually kind of wing that too, but I don't know. Let's see if something in the perspective, a mystery of the perspective, can tell us. All right, so let's say that we have our light source actually coming from right here, right? And I'm actually going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and let's talk about shadows. So that is a brilliant question, and one that I actually need to take a look at myself. Okay, so if this guy had a shadow, obviously, and that is our light source, the shadow is going to fall right along that area. Now let's see here. In order to make sure that this shadow is just as long as this one, you know, because if we make it the same length, it might look kind of weird. Or maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure, actually. I'm really, really not sure. Because I've worked with like drawing things like mechanical objects in perspective, and one of the things like Iron Stylus, I worked with him, and I worked with him on this perspective type stuff, right? And he taught me that when you're drawing something in perspective, the lines of how can I best explain this? Stuff is really tough. Stuff is really tough. But let's say we're drawing like an arm in perspective, right? So here's the elbow, here's the hand, and you ask, where's the shoulder supposed to be? If it was perfectly stretched out, the distance between here and here, you know, like one of the things that I used to do is, okay, say this is the hand here. Let's draw like some fingers on it. Say this is our hand, and then our forearm comes back like this. I would say, okay, well, it's going back in space, so the shoulder is probably going to be like right here. And I draw the shoulder like that and the bicep. But actually, the reason why that is not correct is because the distance from here to here, this distance from this point to this point, needs to actually be the same. It needs to be the same going back in perspective. So it'd actually be right there, right? And then what's interesting, if we draw that same arm in a different perspective, say it's more like here, and that same hand is coming toward us, the distance from here to here, right, being our elbow, it should also be that same distance from here to here. It looks like. I don't know. That's all crazy crap that I don't know if we can go into right now. Because that is not my forte. But anyway, with shadows. I almost want to say that based upon that rule, that basically however long this shadow is from here to here, it needs to be the same. But I don't know, that just doesn't make sense. No, actually it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same because this guy is bigger. It would not be the same because this guy is bigger. It would be the same if... Yeah, it wouldn't be the same. It would be basically... Like if you were to lay this guy down, I guess it's like as long as him, right? So if you lay him down, it's just by scale, I guess. That's what it is. There you go. So that guy's shadow would come that far. Because I was like, there's no way. There's no way that this guy's shadow would be as long as this guy's shadow. So I'm thinking that's the way we'd do that. I don't know. Shadows are another whole thing in themselves. But I think you just got to really consider where your light is coming from and how far back the shadow is going to be cast. Based upon the angle, you know? Like if the light was coming from this direction, the shadow would probably be cast right there. But if it was coming from this direction, that shadow would be cast way back here. You know what I'm saying? Cast way the heck back there. And if it was right above him, he would have almost no shadow. We just have like a little shadow down like that. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and maybe we can go into that a little bit more next week as far as shadows go. Alrighty, peoples! Alright, so it looks like we are good on questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end today. Thank you guys once again for joining me live on Ustream. Those of you on YouTube, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. Just want to make sure that I got everything taken care of here. Yeah, make sure the art contest link is going to be down in the description, so go check that out, as well as how to get your name on this lovely list of people. The thank you picture that changes every month. I'll also have that link down there for you as well. So thanks, guys. Once again, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. My name is Keenan Lafferty. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow for Whatever Wednesday. We're going to be doing some more Emma stuff. Yeah, and we'll probably be doing some more Horizon Line trick stuff. So until then, you guys take care. Gotta load up epic outro music. All right, we're out. I'll see you guys tomorrow.